Welcome back to another episode of Shut the Front Door. Today I've got a special guest with me, Rob Crowe. So what we're going to do is stick with our timeline. Today I'm going to discuss my one thing, which is emotions in property buying. And then we're going to cross over with what Rob sees in his business in strategy and personal development and how that can help you on your search in property. So first and foremost, we're going to keep ourselves honest. We are going to start it. As you can see, the timer is ticking down. Nothing's going to explode. It just makes sure we keep on time. When you're looking at property, it's very important to acknowledge the emotion when you're searching, because there's going to be the intricacies of everyday life. You have a busy schedule, you've got family, you've also got your fears, your resentments, and they play a role when you're searching in property. What I always try and get people to do is really put that all on the table, because it helps you get clearer as to why you're doing things. Because I think we can all imagine that if you're looking at something objectively with zero emotion, that makes a decision far clearer. But property is a big decision in terms of your life, your expenditure with budget, your significant other and the role they play, and also how your life is going to play out for the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. So when you're looking at emotion in property, the first thing I would say to anybody is, I think a checklist is probably key, because that keeps you honest, it keeps you grounded, and it gives you an opportunity to have that dialogue with your significant other or partner or family member if they're involved. I also think it probably is a good way to open up a conversation with things that may not have been said. What's ironic with property is someone may not talk about the emotional side to a purchase and it'll spill out in another way. Much like the example of someone being in a bad mood and they maybe accidentally slammed the door, and the door being slammed is what starts a conversation or an argument that should have been discussed maybe 2 days ago. So emotion in property for me is one of those clear enhancers of an experience, because you are emotional because you care, but also the emotions can cloud your judgment. And I think you really want to balance that strategic approach with that practicality and bringing that human element of it in. I want you to introduce to Rob Crowe this week. So Rob, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I'm a strategic advisor for business owners. I worked in consulting for years, management consulting. Before that, I was an industrial designer, but very much always been in consulting. I love business. I love talking to business owners. So my job now and the company that I run, Horizon Consultants, allows me to do that day to day. So much of what you're talking about there in terms of property translating to the business world when it comes to decision making, emotions play such a strong role in everything we do.
Isn't it funny? Because when you talk about strategy and the decisions we make in everyday life, we can overlook it because we think emotion is something that happens in a particular setting. You're in love with someone, or if you break up with someone, or if you're frustrated, but we don't realize they can cloud your judgment in everything you're doing.
Yeah.
So if you were to advise someone in keeping the one thing, if you were taking your strategic approach to guiding someone in business, what do you think might help someone keep them honest and keep their emotions in check?
Emotions in check, yeah. It's like you mentioned there with your checklist. You have something to refer back to, your goal standard, your map. Day to day, when things happen, competitors do something or something happens at home and those emotions start to kick in, to have something to refer back to. That's often a role that I play with people, listening to what's come up in the last week or so since we spoke and say, where are these decisions coming from? You can tell when people are fired up about something or if they're doing something from a reactive place. So letting them play that out in their own way and then referring back, okay, I hear everything you said. Let's refer back to the plan that we agreed on. Do we need to change this based on what you said? Or do we just refer back here and keep going? It's oftentimes just giving people the space to talk that out and then referring back to her plan and moving forward.
It's very interesting because I think people spend more time on different areas of their lives that they don't realize. So let's say buying a jacket or buying a new car. People will agonize over it. They'll strategize over it. They might review budget more often than they'd admit to, or they want opinions or whatever it may be. It's quite interesting that people overlook the role of strategy and the emotion of every decision we make in life. From your perspective, what's probably the biggest challenge for someone when they're taking a view to either leveling up your business or making a big change?
A lot of people think there's thousands of books written on strategy. You can build all these strategy houses and these roadmaps and these plans, but it comes back to that classic saying that you make a plan and then God laughs. You can't plan for the unforeseen. Say, a lot of people think, okay, I'm going to bring this advisor and they're going to give me the plan, then I just do it. It's not like that in reality. It's that we build a plan, we do our best, we put our best foot forward, we have our goal that we're working towards, but oftentimes as we take a step, the true path reveals itself. We have a plan. This is what we think is going to happen. Let's do something. Something else happens. There's a reaction, or maybe something doesn't go down as well as we thought it did. We build, we adapt, we keep going. So I think for a lot of people, it's getting over that. Particularly if they don't have a strategy background, I think people think it's very theoretical, and it is in a certain sense. For me, the true value is on the human side, applying that strategy to different people across the business or different business owners. It's not a one size fits all.
It's an interesting one, the way you put it, because people look at the cost of doing business when it comes to anything. So let's say the cost of choosing a personal trainer, getting your dog walked, who you get your haircut with. These all seem like trivial things, but when you're looking at investing, people don't see that finding a strategist or finding a property buyer is actually that the application is you've got someone you can outsource that thought process to, a jumble of puzzle pieces.
Yep.
They put it together, but it's not that they have the answer for you. They're facilitating your journey.
Exactly.
It's giving you that opportunity to dip in and out and get clarity. But it's not a one size fits all.
And that's the hard thing for people to get their heads around sometimes. The personal training is a good example. Is I hired a personal trainer, I'm not going to be fit tomorrow. If I hire a strategist, we're not going to be everything up and running by tomorrow. It's a long-term thing. It's all those elements that you can't see or touch is the true importance.
Yeah, it reminds me of a funny one where I remember there was a late night back in the 90s. There was a TV show where it was like late night shopping. And I bought like a Chuck Norris 100 exercises in one.
Yeah.
And as soon as I bought it, I assumed I was going to be in absolutely phenomenal condition by virtue of my purchase going through.
Yeah.
As opposed to not understanding my version of what working out was, my version of winning, my understanding of what was involved and the timeline.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes people assume just because they hire you or work with you, you are going to give them the meaning to life.
Exactly. And you'll probably see this as well in the work you do. Oftentimes you're their advisor, guiding them on the path, and then something will happen and they'll make a decision. They'll buy the equivalent of the late night shopping thing, the quick fix for the business, or some salesperson got them, and then I'll meet them and say, oh, I did X, Y, and Z. I probably should have told you. I was like, yeah, you probably should have told me that in the moment. It's fine. We'll deal with it. We'll move on. Over time, people get used to, I know this is an important decision. Have I talked it out? Have I consulted everyone? Is it part of the strategy? And you start to break down those barriers for people. But I imagine it's the same for you. You get people just going off doing their own thing and they go, actually, we should have run that past Andrew.
I think it's a funny thing in anything we do. Even when you think of investing your time, I think you can relate it to, even you get your haircut and you're asking the guy what you should do or the girl what you should do in terms of product, in terms of caring. And then they tell you what you should have done. Yeah. And then he said, I actually bought something in the pound shop that's really not good quality and it's not good for my hair, but it's after the fact.
Exactly.
And that collaborative effort with someone who knows what they're doing is taking the ego out of it and not having a go at someone just because they made a mistake. It's that recalibration piece.
Yeah, actually, that's a huge piece as well. Vulnerability. I always say to people, in order for me to help, you need an element of vulnerability and openness to take that guidance on board. There is very much a certain mindset or a certain type of person that you need to have going into these, or bringing someone on board like myself or like yourself, that there's a trust factor there. There is a vulnerability to be able to come and say, look, I don't know what I'm doing here. I'm not sure about this.
What's fascinating about that is I think post-COVID, people are crying out for that connection. And I think a real part of the role we play in people's lives, it's that on paper, someone may think it's a property or someone may think it's a strategy for leveling up in business or maybe a total change in their lives. But sometimes it can just be that conversation where someone gets to make that emotional or business style deposit and they know it's not going to go anywhere if they don't need it to.
Exactly.
But sometimes that problem shared is a problem halved because it's not a family member. It's not someone who's attached.
Yeah.
And then you can layer in that strategy and advice on that basis.
Exactly. And that's the stuff that isn't in many of the textbooks.
It's funny that they don't tell you everything. Out of interest, for my last question, if you had to pick one book, what would you choose? And it doesn't matter what the area is. It could be How to Learn Guatemalan or whatever. What do you think would be the best book to get into?
Oh, the one I always tell people to read when I first start working with them, if they haven't already, is The One Thing. Really good book, really simple, a lot of easy exercises to get you going, get you moving, get you focused.
Okay, so there's your book recommendation. Check out the book. Very interesting. And Rob, thanks a million for coming in and having a chat with us today.
Thank you.